Now we turn to our spotlight this week, and I'm going to demonstrate the Android features of the BrailleSense 6. I acknowledge this in my demo, but I would like to place on record my thanks to Sight and Sound Technology based in Northampton here in the UK, who were kind enough to lend me a review unit for a couple of days. So here's my demo. Hello everyone, my name is Ed Green. And in this demonstration, I'll be showing you some of the features of the BrailleSense 6. For those of you not familiar with the BrailleSense 6, it's a note taker produced by HIMS, but it's much more than that. As well as being a note taker, it runs the Android operating system, specifically Android version 10. So as well as the HIMS inbuilt apps, which are obviously quite powerful and serve many people well, it's possible to install apps from the Google Play Store and indeed APKs from other sources as well, which I'll talk about a little bit later on. I would first like to start by thanking Sight and Sound Technology in the UK. They are the HIMS dealer here, and they have very kindly loaned me a unit for a few days so that I could record this demonstration. It's a little over £4,000 here in the UK, 4,395, I think. So I wasn't going to be in a position to buy one to demonstrate it. I'd also indirectly like to thank HIMS themselves, who recorded several useful getting started and tutorial videos, which I took a look at prior to doing this demonstration because I knew I wouldn't have the note taker for all that long. So I thought it would be better to get up to speed with it quickly. I've mentioned that it is a note taker as well as an Android tablet, and that many people will want to take advantage of the inbuilt HIMS apps. That's not really the purpose of this demonstration, though, given that we are blind Android users. What I wanted to do was to see what its support was like for Android, the operating system, the Play Store, and third-party apps as well. So that's what I will be focusing on during this demonstration. I'll not be looking at those HIMS apps, although, as I say, for many people, they will be the go-to solutions for the functions that those apps perform. Let me tell you a little about the device, first of all, before we power it on. As I say, it's running Android 10. It has an octa-core processor. It has 6 gigabytes of RAM, and it has 128 gigabytes of internal storage. It also supports SD cards. And I think it's a full-size SD card. I'm just going to click this out and have a look. Yes, it is. Well, actually, this one isn't. It's a dummy with a hole in the middle. But it would be the full size of an SD card were it an SD card rather than the micro SDs. So that's what it supports. It has a lot of connectivity options as well. There are 4 USB ports, 2 USB-A, 2 USB-C. One of those is a client port, one of the USB-C. The others are hosts. So you can connect any number of accessories to this if they support generic plug and play, anything from drives to USB hubs to connect even more things, to headsets, to external cameras even, to mixers. One of the things I saw in the HIMS video is you can get around the problem of not being able to share audio in the Android Zoom app by using a mixer that supports USB return, and it will then allow you to play that audio. So interesting if you want to get into that. Many other things as well, keyboards, mice, so any USB accessory you can think of that supports plug and play, you could try attaching it to your BrailleSense 6. You can mirror the BrailleSense 6. It has a little LCD, but you can mirror it on another Android phone, and that would allow a sighted person to take limited control of the unit as well. So if there are sighted IT professionals or teachers who need to be able to do that, then that is a possibility, apparently, although I've not tried it. It has a 13 megapixel camera. It's got 2 stereo speakers, 32 cells of refreshable braille. So I'll give you a quick tour of the device physically. If we start on the top face of the device, you have, if you put the braille display closest to you, that's at the bottom. You've then got a 9-key braille keyboard, which really does feel very nice. It's one of the things I find braille display manufacturers often get wrong is the space bar. I don't quite know why. Some of them insist on 2 space bars. Some of them position it a little bit too close to the keyboard, I remember using the BrailleSense Smart Beetle, sorry, the HIMS Smart Beetle a few years ago, and you couldn't get on with that at all just because the spacebar was so close to the keys. Some of the space bars don't have travel. This is really nice though, that all the keys travel well. You can type on it. It's quiet. It's got I guess a focus-ish feel to me, the keys, if you've used the focuses, certainly the latter day ones. Although perhaps these keys are slightly better, well, they're slightly more shaped than the focus. So yeah, you have that. It's as I say, it's an 8-dot Braille keyboard with a space bar. To the immediate left and right of space are Control and Alt, respectively, which is handy for programs like Google Docs, which use those as shortcut key modifiers. The fact that you have those on the keyboards you can use. And then you have going further towards the outer edges of the device, you have function keys. So the one on the far left is F1, the one next to it, just next to the control key, is F2. Then moving past space and Alt, you have F3 and F4 going towards the right end of the keyboard. At either end of the Braille display, you have up and down panning buttons. So you can map these essentially to do what you want, but you might use them to pan the display, a display length. You could set them to move by line and by sentence. Or you might find it more natural to use one on the left for panning left and one on the right for panning right. Or as I say, there are 2 buttons vertically arranged at each end, which by default will pan sort of left, right, up and down. So you can play with those to your heart's content. On the left side of the unit, closest to the display, you have 2 volume buttons. You've then got headphone and microphone to 3.5mm jacks labeled. The label is on the top face of the display, just above each jack. You then have the SD card slot. On the back, there's a USB-A host port. I should say that is covered by the case. So you'll need to flip the case open. The sides are exposed, as is partially the front, where you can access some of the ports, but not those ones. Moving around to the other side of the device, moving around to the right edge, starting this time towards the back. So we've gone round effectively from the SD card around the back of the display, and we're staying at that back right-hand side. We have the charging port, which is also the USB-C host port. We then have the second USB-A port. And then we have the USB-C host port, which is also primarily designed for video out, but will do other stuff as well. Looking at the front of the device now, on the far left, you have a lock switch. Next to it, you have a switch which controls what the media buttons do. You next have the media buttons themselves. There are 5 of them. They are from left to right: back, record, stop, play, pause, and forwards. And then on the right-hand side at the front, in the sort of front corner, there is a power button. I neglected to say actually that on the top face of the device, when we were talking about the Braille display and the Braille keys, we have in the middle a small LCD display, as is common on HIMS products, with little LED lights next to it indicating power on or off and charge status. And then we have either side of that 2 fairly distinctive feeling stereo speakers. They're flush, but they're sort of speaker grilled, so you'll know what they are. I have powered the device right down. I want to give you a feel for how long it takes to power up. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to press and hold this button. I'm going to keep an eye on the display. We'll see what happens. I got a little beep and a vibration. Turning on, the display says HIMS, still says HIMS. Now it says starting BrailleSense. Still on the screen saying starting BrailleSense. And now starting BrailleSense has appeared with a progress indicator. And we're almost up and running.
File Manager F.
There you go. I should say you don't have to power it down every time. I could just tap the power button and it's gone to sleep. There you go. If I tap it again to wake it up,
File Manager F.
There we go. I should say, by the way, that you can turn off that startup chime. You aren't stuck with it, which is possibly a relief to some. So now we have it open. I will just take you through the main menu, although, as I say, we're going to concentrate on the Android side of things.
Word processor W. Notepad N. Email E. Media M. Books K. Organizer O. Web tools B. Extras X. Utilities U. Settings S. Help H. Play Store P. All apps. Information about the BrailleSense I. Information about the BrailleSense I.
So that's the bottom, and it's the penultimate and anti-penultimate items, which are the goodies, I think, from our perspective. Play Store and all apps. So all apps will be where your Android goodies live. I'm going to go to all apps first.
All apps. Amazon Kindle.
Now, I should say, obviously, the BrailleSense does not, by default, support a touchscreen. It doesn't have a touchscreen on it. So you navigate primarily, unless you plug something else into it, you navigate using the keyboard. And one of the nice things that HIMS has done, this works in app lists, it works in apps such as the Play Store, Netflix, and Spotify. If you know the letter that a control or an app starts with, you can press that and use first letter navigation. So you heard it was on Amazon Kindle. Now, I could carry on scrolling down all these apps.
Assistant. Calendar. Camera. Chrome. Contacts.
Or if what I want to do is get to settings or Spotify, I could just press S.
Settings. Spotify.
There you go. And we're jumped to settings. I might take a look at settings first. We'll see what we've got in here.
List setting. Button and labeled. Press enter to activate. Button network. Ampersand. Internet Wi-Fi. Data usage. And hotspot and list 21 items. Press enter to activate. 2-stroke. Button connected devices. Bluetooth. Press enter to activate. 3-stroke 21.
So typical 2 items at the top there. I will go back to the top, but I'm just interested to see first letter navigation works here. Let's see if pressing A takes me to apps and notifications.
Button apps. Ampersand. Notifications.
It does. Which is very good.
To
and if I wanted to go back to network near the top, let's see what happens if I press N.
Button apps. Ampersand. Notifications. Recent settings out of list. Settings. Settings.
Now, N didn't seem to work then. Not quite sure why.
Press enter to button function. Press enter to
Why that was.
Settings. Press enter
Going to come out of this.
Spotify.
Go back into settings.
Button and labeled. Press enter to button network. Ampersand. Internet Wi-Fi. Data usage and hotspot and list 21 items. Press enter to activate. 2-stroke 21.
So initial letter did work on apps and notifications, didn't there for some reason. I'll carry on going down the settings categories though.
Button connected devices. Bluetooth. Press enter to activate. 3-stroke 21. Button apps. Ampersand. Notifications. Recent apps. Default apps. Press enter to activate. 4-stroke button. Battery 92%. Sign. Press enter to activate. 5-stroke 21.
Battery life is pretty good on this. I think the manual says you get 18 hours continuous usage, and that's with TTS and Braille. So obviously quite considerably better than you're going to get from an Android phone or tablet. But that's not surprising, really. It's a bigger unit with a bigger battery.
Button display wallpaper. Sleeve. Font size. Press enter to activate. Button sound volume. Vibration. Do not disturb. Press enter to activate. 8. Button storage 21%. Sign. Used 101 gigabytes free. Press enter to activate. 9-stroke button. Privacy permissions. Account activity. Personal data. Press enter to activate. 10-stroke 20. Button location on 4 apps have access to location. Press enter to activate. 11-stroke 21. Button security screen lock. Press enter to activate. 13-stroke 21. Button accounts Google. Press enter to activate. 14-stroke 21. Button accessibility screen readers. Display. Interaction controls. Press enter to activate. 50. Button digital wellbeing. ampersand. Parental control screen time. App timers. Bedtime schedules. Press enter to activate. Button Google services. Ampersand. Preferences. Press enter to activate. Button Dura speed. Press enter to activate. 18/21.
I don't know what Dura speed is. I might have a look at that later.
Button system languages. Gestures. Time. Backup. Press enter to activate. 20s. Button about tablet BrailleSense 6. Underscore. 368. Press enter to activate. 21/21.
So there we are. I mentioned first letter navigation as well. You can go to the top and the bottom of screens with the old sort of L chord, dots 456 chord. That's chord. That's to say those key combinations pressed with space. You know, the universal note taker gestures from the 1980s work here as well.
Button location on 4 apps have access. Button settings out of button function. Button settings, press enter to act. Button function, press. Button settings, press enter to act. Button function, press enter. Button location on 4 apps. Settings. Setting. Button
So
press enter to act.
I'm going to go into apps and notifications, see what we can do here, see if we can uninstall apps or clear caches and things like that. There is an app manager built in here which lets you uninstall apps. I'm going to see what we can do from settings.
Button connected device. Button apps. Button navigate up. Press enter. Apps. Ampersand. Notifications. Button search settings. Press enter. List recently open apps and list 6 items. 1/6. Button Google Play Store 25 minutes ago. Press enter to activate. Button navigate up.
Let's see what we can do with the Play Store.
App info. Button search settings. Press. Button more options. Press enter to Google Play Store and list 7 items. Button open. Press enter to activate. Button disable. Press enter to activate. 2 strip. Button 4 stop. Press enter to button notifications 4 no. Button permissions phone. SM. Button storage. Ampersand. Cache 107 megabytes used in it. Storage. Press enter to activate. Button navigate up. Press enter. Storage. Button search setting. Button Google Play Store the 27. Button clear storage. Press enter to activate. Button clear cache. Press enter to activate.
And I'll just go to the top of the screen to show you that I could have jumped there, I think, with the letter C.
Button clear storage.
Yeah.
10 items.
So
Press enter to activate.
I went to the top of the screen, pressed the letter C, and it jumped me to clear storage without having to do all that stuff at the top. So some efficient ways to navigate. I don't particularly want to clear Google Play's cache or storage because it will make me sign in again. And actually, I want to show you about downloading an app in a minute, and I'll just have to sign in, and that'll be quite boring. So let's back out of this. You've got various back options here. I could use F4 to back out. I could use E chord or Z chord to back out. I'll press F4.
Button storage. Ampersand.
And again.
107. Button Google Play Store 27 minutes ago in list.
And I'm back in apps.
List search setting.
And I'm back to the main settings screen just by pressing that F4 function key. As I say, one of the several options HIMS gives you on this device to press the back button. I should say we probably won't get into them, but as well as first letter navigation and hotkeys to navigate around, there are hotkeys to do the Android things you'd expect, like double tap and hold to bring up context menus and all the rest of it. They do say that their screen reader is based heavily on TalkBack, but with those modifications to make sure that it works in a keyboard environment in a relatively efficient way. So, and there's we were only in the settings app, admittedly, but there was no lag to speak of. It was fine to use that. So let's go look and see what Dura Speed did. I hadn't heard of that. I'm going to go down.
Button display wallpaper. Buttons. Button print. Button location. Button secure. Button accounts. Button access. Button digital web. Button Google service. Button Dura Speed. Press enter.
Here we go. Dura Speed. What's this?
Button on press enter to activate. Button disabled switch on to allow apps to run. Button on press enter to activate. 1 stroke. Button disabled switch on to allow apps to run in background. 2 stroke 44. Button on press enter to activate. Button disabled switch on to allow apps to run in background. 2 stroke 44.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what this does. Something to do with allowing apps to run in the background, and we're going to leave that alone.
Dura Speed out of list. Button function press enter to activate.
And I'm just going to go again to
Settings.
about
Settings.
tablet now,
Press
and that'll
enter
be the
to
last.
activate.
The last setting we take a look at will be about tablet.
Button privacy and list 21 items. Button location. Button secure. Button accounts Google. Button access. Button digital. Button Google search. Button Duros. Button system language. Button about tablet. Button navigate up. Press about tablet. Button search settings. Press owner and list 11 items. Once button device name BrailleSense 6 underscore 368. Press enter to activate. Button emergency information info. Button legal information. Press it. Button model. Ampersand. Button Android version 10. Press enter to activate. 6 spoke 11.
I'm going to see in here what security patch it's running.
Up, press enter. Android version. Button search settings. Press enter. Button Android version 10 and list 5 items. Press button Android security patch level the 5th of July 2021. Press enter to activate. 2 spoke 5.
Okay, so yesterday this machine was running version 1.0 of the HIMS firmware, and it was running the April security patch. They rolled out version 1.5. I'm not sure if other firmware versions have been made available subsequent to 1.5, and they just hadn't been installed on this, what is, I think, a demonstration unit. It's entirely possible. But it seems as though yesterday's update has brought the security patch to July 2021. So better than April, but we're still not quite in the current quarter, it looks like, for security patch updates. I think that's what I'm going to show you in settings for now. I'll come out of here.
Settings.
And we will go, I think, to the Play Store next.
Spotify.
So we'll go to Play Store with P.
List all apps. Play Store. Button for you. Press enter to activate.
So when you're in the Android app, you can tab around. The F3 key can do that. .45 chord can do that. Shift tabbing would be space F3. You can move by using .4 and space, .4 chord or .1 chord. Or, as I said, we can use first letter navigation. Now that we're going to install an app here, so I'll press S until we get to the search button.
Button stylized games. Press it. Button for you. Press enter to button search for apps.
There we go.
Games. Press enter.
Press enter.
Edit box. Search for apps. Ampersand. Games.
So why don't we search for Amazon Prime Video?
Amazon. Prime. Button navigate up. Press enter.
Now,
activate.
if I press I here,
Button install. Press enter to activate.
I've landed on an install button, which is pretty slick. I should probably just double check that it is the app I actually want to install.
Button Amazon Prime Video.
Yes, it is.
Button install. Press enter.
So if I press enter on here, there's actually no indication that anything's happened. So to be notified that it has, you're going to have to move off this control and move back to it. But, you know, this will install. It'll turn into an open button. Let's have a look.
Button average. Button open. Press enter to activate.
Yeah. So we've installed Amazon Prime Video. I'm not actually going to open Prime Video because I haven't configured it, and I don't want to spend time logging in. I have, though, installed and configured both Spotify and Netflix. So we're going to go and have a little look at those. So I'm going to come out the Play Store.
Play Store. Help. Placed all
Back
apps.
into all apps.
Settings. Spotify. List Spotify S. Home. Button home. Tab 1 of 3, press enter to activate.
So I'm just going to move around rather than using first letter, so you can get a sense, hopefully, that it's not laggy at all. So I'm just going to press .4 chord to move down.
Button search. Button your library. Felina. From Marty Robbins, press enter. Seek control, use volume. Button like this song, press enter. Button previous, press enter to activate.
You see it's fine. So no lag to speak of.
Button home.
Going to go back to the top.
Press enter to activate.
I'm going to press S for search, even though actually it's right near the top. Never mind.
Button search. Tab 2 search. Tab 2 button cancel. Press enter to activate.
So we're in the search field now. And why don't we put yellow submarine?
Button your library.
Oh, no, we weren't quite in the edit box. That strange Spotify thing.
Button home. Tab button search. Button search for your top genres row 1. Button search fonts. Button cancel. Press it. Button cancel. Press entered. Image connect to a device. Button cancel. Edit box search query.
There we go. We're properly in the edit field now. You'll recall on a phone, sometimes you tap on search for Spotify and then you have to do it again. You have to do a similar thing here. I think it's better, a bit like with that install button in the Play Store, to move off and on it to check you are in the edit box. Otherwise, you will just move to controls that begin with the letters you're typing. So, I don't know, what shall we type? Yellow submarine. Oops. Help if I could type, wouldn't it?
Button cancel, press enter to activate.
So if it has yellow submarine, I ought to be able to press the letter Y and move to the song. Let's see if this works.
Edit box yellow submarine search query, press enter to enter text. Button yellow submarine song. The Beatles row 1 in grid 7 row.
So first off,
press enter to activate.
It took me to the edit box, which isn't unreasonable because it had a Y in it as the first letter. But with 2 presses of Y, I'm on yellow submarine. And so if I press enter now, I'm hoping it'll play.
Media control yellow. In the town where I was born, lived a man.
It did. Pretty quickly, pretty responsive. I paused it with one of the media keys on the front of the device. You'll remember I told you about 5 buttons. Well, you may not remember. You may have got bored and weren't listening. But let's just pretend you were all paying attention. The 4th of those 5 buttons is the play pause. Now, it's a little bit confusing. I mentioned a switch as well, which had a mode to change what those buttons did. That mode is application mode, which gives them app-specific buttons. You know, they work to in Android, for instance, to give you other navigation options. There's a daisy mode, which makes them do daisy-ish things, and there's a media mode, which, as the name implies, makes them do media things. That media mode, though, only works in the HIMS dedicated media player. If you want to be able to use the play pause button on Spotify as a play pause button, you are going to need that slider in application mode and not in media mode, in my experience anyway. And it's a press and hold. You do need to release it after the press and hold to get it to do something. So I could use the play pause button to resume the yellow submarine. I'll release it. Pause it again because we're probably infringing some sort of copyright, which would be bad. We don't have a license, but hopefully I didn't play enough of it for that to matter. Anyway, so that is Spotify, just playing songs. This isn't a Spotify tutorial, obviously. It's just giving you an illustration, so I'm not going to get into playlists and all the rest of it. This is just to give you an indication of how this unit performs in Android. And so, yes, no sluggishness. I found there's no waiting around for stuff to happen. It's, you know, it works pretty well. Let's go to Netflix. Let's close out of this.
Netflix.
Here we go. Netflix.
Who's watching? Cake. Image Netflix. Button edit profiles. Press enter. Who's watching? Button cake row 1 column 1 in grid 2
So we'll
rows.
fix the who's watching issue.
Enter your pin to access this profile.
Enter my pin.
Edit box.
What's my pin?
Edit box. Edit box. Parenthesis. Parenthesis. Contracted braille. Computer braille. Uncontracted. 7, 7, 9, 2. List button play. Press enter to activate. Button close. Press enter to activate. Made.
So we're in Netflix. I'm going to go to search.
Button series. Press enter to button search. Press enter to activate.
Most people are watching Squid Game these days, aren't they? Let's search for Squid Game.
SQUID Squid GAME. Button clear query. Press enter. Button Squid Game row 1 column 1 in grid.
So here we are. Here is Squid Game. Let's open it.
Button close. Press enter to activate. Button resume grey light. Green light. Press enter to activate.
So here's a resume button. I'm going to press enter.
Feet within bounds, while the offense outside the lines are only allowed to hop on 1 foot.
Yoon grabs an opponent's hand, then points. It's your mom!
But If an attacker cuts through,
There we go. So that was fairly painless. It was pretty quick. I had just started streaming it. We'll close out Netflix because it's reading me warnings, which is boring. There we go. So playing something on Netflix is also pretty painless and a pretty sweet experience. I think I've probably shown you enough for you to get the idea of how this works. The only other thing I just want to talk about, actually, before I do that, is Kindle. You'll recall that there are issues with Kindle on Android and Braille, which we've covered before, about not being able to turn the page of a Kindle book without touching the screen of your mobile phone. That's not the case on the BrailleSense 6. You can advance the page by pressing space. You do, though, have to advance the page by pressing space. There's no auto page advancement that I can discover. I've looked on the Facebook group and I couldn't see anything there either. But you at least don't have to remove your hands from the BrailleSense to do it. The other thing to say about the Kindle app is that it's not showing in the Play Store for the BrailleSense. I think because Amazon realised it doesn't have a touchscreen, although weirdly Prime Video showed. So I don't quite know if that is the explanation why it would be. So I actually rang HIMS tech support about this, and they very kindly sent me a link to an APK of Kindle. They must get that question relatively often and have pulled one off somewhere like APK Mirror or APK Pure or one of those. So yeah, I emailed them I rang them to check what the deal was. Other apps I have not found to be a problem, although I'm sure there are others that won't appear in the Play Store either, but certainly Spotify did, Netflix did. You heard yourselves that Prime Video did. Yeah, Kindle doesn't, and there may be one or two more. So I'll give you some thoughts, my thoughts anyway, about the machine, and I'll discuss it with Warren and the guys live on the show as well. What I really like about BrailleSense 6 and Android is the Braille, obviously. So you aren't dependent on a somewhat flaky Bluetooth connection. Some of the Braille limitations in Android don't exist. You can, if you want, operate this with voice off and Braille whilst in Android. There's a hotkey to turn off the speech, and then the Braille will function very nicely. It's stable, it's reliable, it's very solid. So Braille and Android here is working very, very well. The keyboard is good. Keyboard's a really nice typing experience. With Key Echo, especially with Key Echo set to words, I think the speech will chase you a little bit. It does seem to get rather left behind and doesn't seem to interrupt itself quite as smoothly as some other stuff. But letters aren't being missed when you type. It's all going in accurately, regardless of the speech kind of lumbering after it a little bit. The connectivity, if you are an accessories person, is obviously very, very good. A lot of external stuff you can plug in to here. And the Android experience, is snappy. That it's not. There aren't delays. It'll take some getting used to. Some of the Explore by Touch benefits of a touch screen, particularly knowing where to start that Explore by Touch if you want to start, say, in the middle of the screen or towards the bottom. There are shortcuts, that will let you accomplish similar things, but, it will be different. But in some ways, that first letter acceleration makes things quicker than you will be on a touchscreen device. What are my concerns, if any? Well, it's running Android 10, which I think is fine at the minute. You can still buy mainstream devices that are on 10. What I want to see is HIMS or Humanware with their note takers offer a major Android upgrade. It's absolutely not true to say they don't offer upgrades. HIMS do. I've mentioned it. From 1.5 hit just yesterday, which was Tuesday at time of recording. This is Wednesday now. And that includes updates. It includes new apps and functionality ported over from one of their old note takers, which people had been requesting. I do, though, at some stage want to see either the Braille Note Touch Plus or the BrailleSense 6 get an Android update. There have been 4 Android tablets released, both generations of the lines I've just mentioned. Not one has had a major Android version update yet. So I think it would be good to have some commitment that was going to happen. And also, it needs to happen tomorrow. Not even saying when it does, it needs to be Android 12. But I think some reassurance that, and it goes for both manufacturers in this area. I do think they need to offer a major operating system upgrade, because, to upgrade to whatever the Polaris was running, which I think, no, I'm not going to say, I can't remember. It was quite an old version though, but essentially the only way to upgrade the Android version was to upgrade to the 6, and they offered a trade-in offer, which for a note taker is quite good. It's a rather expensive way to change Android versions though. And as I say, we'll get into things like processors with Warren that this is running. So yeah, I think there is absolutely a market for the BrailleSense 6. It does some stuff very, very well. I was pleased at how, I won't say I was surprised, because I think that's slightly unfair. I don't think I came with any preconceptions, but I was pleased with the way it handled Android mainstream applications. As I say, it's got some really good hardware. So I hope that's given you food for thought, and we will continue this discussion on the podcast. Warren, what do you make of the BrailleSense 6?
The BrailleSense 6 is a good device. I did get to play with it a little while ago myself as well. Someone had me, I'm not going to mention any names here. So I took it home, and you know me, I needed to find out what's going on underneath the hood. That's the most important thing. And of course, I decided to find out what powers that great BrailleSense 6. And of course, we're talking MediaTek here, and particularly 6873 MediaTek. That's what powers that. Now, if you're not familiar with the MediaTek, you think of it like the Qualcomms and all of that. So it's what powers some mobile devices. A lot of the mobile devices are being powered by MediaTek, especially all the mid-rangers. Of late, though, there's some better MediaTek chips that are out there, comparable to the Snapdragon ones. And those are especially maybe the Dimensity 2000. These are very nice chips. But other than that, a lot of the MediaTek chips are kind of like at the bottom of the barrel, if you will. And they power a lot of the mid-range phones. Anything that you get, from Nokia, the low ones, especially maybe running a MediaTek. Even Samsung does have some phones that are being powered by MediaTek, especially the mid-range ones. And so when you're getting a phone, $200, $150, $300, whatever, the probability is that it is being powered by a MediaTek chip.
And the 6873, is that in the nice Media chip range or a MediaTek chip range, or is it in the sort of thumbs down MediaTek chip range?
Well, I wouldn't say it's a thumbs down, because in actuality, it powers some of the Xiaomi $300 phones. So it's in the mid-range, but a little bit more in the upper mid-range. We're not talking about, low ones that are from like 4 or 5 years ago. This chip was announced back in 2019. So we have a chip that's from 2 years ago powering something that came out in 2021.
I didn't work the BrailleSense 6 phenomenally hard, but I put some mainstream apps on it, and it seemed to hold up pretty well. You can argue about whether a device that costs what the BrailleSense 6 does should have a chip like that, and I think that's an entirely legitimate conversation to have. I think a lot of these specialist devices include core mainstream power components. The L Braille does as well, or it certainly used to. I think it came in i3 and i5 flavors on launch, which was a bit surprising. But it wasn't laggy at all on the Android side, and the very few apps I tried with it. But it's interesting that it's not particularly transparent about what chip it's running.
And that's a thing, though, and I don't know why that is such a thing. If someone is buying something, you need to let them know what they're buying. If I'm buying a car, I want to know whether I have a 6-engine cylinder or an 8-engine cylinder, or what I'm driving around, or whatever the case may be. But to simply say, here's a car, just drive it, you don't need to know what is being what is powering this car. I think that is a wrong approach. And HIMS, I'm looking at you guys. You need to come clean, tell people what it is. There's nothing wrong with the MediaTek chip. If that's what is holding you back from letting people know what that is, I think it's time that we get past that. It's not a bad chip, and it's up to me whether I should buy something that has a MediaTek chip or not. And that's immaterial. We shouldn't be hiding it.
Absolutely agree. The other thing I'd say, and I say this on the video as well, I was only demonstrating the Android side, so a lot of the reason people will buy this device is because of the options that the HIMS apps give you for being designed from a totally blind or a blind user's perspective. So that wasn't what we were looking at, but bear in mind that is the other half of the BrailleSense.
Yeah, and if you're a blind person and you kind of like things with the keyboard, and absolutely this is going to be something that would be right down your alley because it has all those capabilities, and you're able to, read things in Braille and do Braille input and all of that. So in reality, it's a good device. It's just that the money is right there upon the rooftops, and for some reason, everything for the blind or disability communities usually sits up there on the rooftop. So if you have a little bit of moolah, I think that thing is like $5,800 here in the US. It's not a cheap device by any stretch of imagination.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it's $43.95 excluding sales tax here in the UK. So yeah, that's the BrailleSense 6.
And it is 4,32,000 rupees in India.
432,000?
Yeah.
4 lakh is 400,000 rupees, I think. So 432,000 rupees.
You are kidding. So I may be buying a yacht or something like that.
Yeah.
Can you imagine someone ponying up 400 and something thousand just to buy a Braille device? Come on, guys, give me a break.
Well, I think it's exchange rate dependent as well, so it's how the exchange rate falls.
Yeah,
432,000 rupees.
I always hear people say, "Well, it's the exchange rate," but my argument has always been that it's just as hard for them to get money like it is for us. So it really, I don't buy the argument of hey, you're changing it into a currency. Just because it's in rupees, it doesn't mean it's so easy to get rupees. You can't just sit there and rupees flying into your lap. So it's just the same hard work that we have to go through here to get that moolah. So I just never buy that argument.
Some of the Indian hotel chains used to operate this policy. I don't know if they still do, but there would be local prices and international prices, because they would say exactly the same thing, that just because there's an exchange rate doesn't mean that we can afford to pay whatever that is in rupees. So some of the hotels would charge domestic customers less than international customers because of that very thing.
Interesting. Yeah, so Austin, when you're ready to buy that thing, let me know, man. I'll ask you for some of that moolah, and maybe I'll get me a car or something crazy like
I will.
That's good.
So that will be it about that BrailleSense. And we're not beating you up on the head, BrailleSense, HIMS guys. It's just that we thought that it was a little bit persnickety that you guys didn't want to tell people what's going on. That's not good. It's not good. So if you're listening, I'm looking at you.
And if anyone from Humanware wants to send us a Braille Note Touch Plus running Android Oreo for review, then we're obviously happy to take a look at that as well.
Exactly.